welcome to Recursion Cafe, where we play games from the discard pile. In today's game of Unmatched, we have Sunzida on the left, playing against Paul on the right. Sunzida is playing Bullseye, a 14 health solo fighter with 2 move. He's technically ranged, but he's kind of more ranged than ranged because he can hit anyone from up to 5 spaces away, ignoring zones. On the right, we have Paul piloting the Genie, who we saw in the last video. He is a solo fighter with 16 health, 3 move, and range as well. At the start of his turn, he can discard a card to gain an action, and as we'll see from this game, he likes drawing cards and having cards in hand to be able to fuel that economy. We are playing on Hell's Kitchen, which technically gives Bullseye a home field advantage. So far, both fighters have just double maneuvered in their opening rounds. Bullseye steps up to take a shot. I don't believe he's using the mailbox. There's a 4-man X trick into a Wishing for All Wishes, which means Bullseye draws 2 cards and is able to move up to 1 space and gains an action. And Genie goes up to 9 cards in hand, I believe, after an initial double maneuver. So if Sunzida doesn't keep the action chain going, then she'll need to discard a card. Here is the mailbox, and it is a ricochet into a feint. So that it would have been a 4 into a 2, but as it stands, it's just a 3 into a 2, so 1 damage only to Genie. And back over to Genie, who has to get in close to make things work. There's a feint discarded from Sunzida, and a card discarded by the Genie to gain 3 actions, the first of which will be 3 Wishes, which gains an action, and Paul is able to force Sunzida to discard 2 cards. So there is another feint, that's 2 feints down, and right between the eyes, which is a pretty solid versatile as a second action or a second defense. So Paul will step into range because he wasn't in range to start with, because Bullseye is pretty crazy. It looks like he maneuvered it into a second 3 Wishes, so that's another 2 cards to be discarded. So that will bring Sunzida down to 3 cards in hand only. And here is a Wild Gracious Assassin, which is a pretty incredible attack card, which can just nullify defense. And I Plan to Be Here, also a great attack card. It looks like Sunzida is holding defense cards in hand because, of course, there will be an onslaught coming. Already 2 of the 3 Wishes gone in the first 2-3 turns of the game. There is a I've made Sultan's Have Less into a tactical retreat. So Bullseye takes no damage and is able to dance away into another zone. But only 2 cards in hand, Paul is able to look at the hand and just pull 1 out. There's a Ricochet gone, which means only a Study the Target is left, which is a great draw card, but Bullseye has to win a combat, and to do that, Bullseye needs other cards in hand. So the last action for Paul is a maneuver up to the map, and Bullseye will go up to the payphone and get a card from the discard pile back in hand, which will be a tactical retreat, because it is such a strong defense, being able to just jump away in case Genie has another big turn. Genie decides to read the map, which is pretty funny if you imagine someone like Robin Williams, Aladdin Genie doing that, and then plays Careful What You Wish For into that same tactical retreat. So 1 damage through into Bullseye, but so far in terms of damage it's looking pretty even, and Bullseye chooses to dance away to the other +2, which is pretty close to Genie, but not directly within range, at least from what I can tell with the zones, which are pretty confusing. I think Bullseye decides to settle back there and just decides to take up position on the high ground next to the manhole cover. So Genie maneuvers up, nice and close, and attacks Bullseye. I'm not sure whether Bullseye feels the need to use the manhole cover on defense, just because Genie's attacks usually aren't that strong. Is a 3 into a 3, so no damage done there, but Paul is able to discard 2 cards to deal 2 damage to an adjacent opposing fighter, and since Bullseye's defense did not include a move effect, I think that is what's going to happen. So there is a Your Wish is My Command and another Your Wish is My Command to deal 2 damage. So the health is at 11 to 15, and Sunzida decides to walk away from the manhole cover and then walks back to it. Still 1 action left. There's some jockeying for position there. And there's a double maneuver, just stays right there. Genie will step away and step to the first aid kit, which is just beyond Bullseye's range. There's a double maneuver. the first aid kit is used to heal 1 health back up to full, and I think both players have just kind of settled for drawing loads of cards in hand. There's a 4-man extra into a feint, which immediately ends Bullseye's turn, essentially, because she maneuvered into position. And I think it's time for the counter-attack. So here is 3 actions. There's an I Grant You Death to get 3 actions. The first one is a maneuver up into range. The second one is an attack into Bullseye. It is a I Am Freed into an arrogant but effective. So Bullseye is able to step away, but I Am Freed means that the Genie can teleport next to him wherever he is and deal a damage to him. Tactically, Sunzida goes to the +2 manhole cover. There is another action from Paul, another attack. It could be any number of adjacency effects, but it's a wishing for more wishes into an arrogant but effective. So 1 damage goes through, and both players get to draw some number of cards, which is ultimately, I think, what they're both really looking for. These are both very aggressive, combo-heavy ranged characters, so this is a very dynamic matchup. Here's an attack from Bullseye, up at the building where the Genie is sitting on, and it is an I Never Miss into a feint, so it's just 1 damage, and Sunzida does not get to boost or draw a card there. But still 1 damage into Genie over a feint is pretty solid. Health is starting to become a little bit more disparate between the 2 fighters, but here's here's a Study the Target, letting Sunzida draw 3 cards and gain an action. It's an incredibly powerful card just to keep the gas going when you're on the offense. Doesn't need Genie to draw more cards when the Bullseye's deck does it for it. Here's another attack, and it's a 4-man extra into a Wishing for More Wishes, which means Bullseye draws 2 more cards and Genie draws 3. So if you know someone who likes to draw cards, this is an incredible matchup to play because you will both be very happy for most of the game, I think. So it's still Bullseye's action, but Genie is sure to have lots of options in hand as well, so both players feeling pretty optimal, I think. And here is a World's Greatest Assassin into a Back in the Lab. So initially, this looks great for Genie because there is no cancel of the value because the value was 0 anyway. But in terms of the ordering, Genie recovers 4 health, but has only taken 1 damage, so will recover 1 health and then take the 4 damage to the face from World's Greatest Assassin. So that was a bit of a roller coaster of resolutions. Initially, it was a good idea, but if you're already near full health, then it doesn't do so much to help. So Genie ends up taking 3 net damage, which is less than ideal. Here is another 3 action turn from Genie. So here's the last of the 3 wishes. So last time Paul chose the double discard, but when your opponent is at a full hand size, that's less effective. At this point, he chooses the 4 value effect, and I asked them to show the camera. Let's just say Emer and Dan did it better in the last video. Oof. Anyway, so there's a maneuver, he draws a card, and the next card will be 4 value. And there's a Grant You Death into Tactical Retreat. So 1 damage does go through because it's a 4, but there is no damage for being adjacent, and Sunzida correctly called that she can just dance away and kind of ignore the rest of that ability, which is unfortunate for Genie. So now Genie's at 12 health, Bullseye is at 8, and both decks are starting to run thin. I think Bullseye has the edge in terms of range, but Genie has some tricks still. So there's an I Never Miss into a Back in the Lamp. Genie will go up to maximum health before Sunzida, I think, boosts the attack to 6, bringing him back down. So net 2 damage. I think 6 damage is about as much as Bullseye can do in 1 hit, barring other tricks. So that was a full value maximum strike against essentially a 4 defense, assuming Genie isn't near maximum health. Health totals are 10 to 8, so damage-wise they're dead even, but Genie is out of wishes, which might be a problem. I get the sense that Genie is running out of gas here and has to just make something happen. So Paul will boost in just to get into range and attack while adjacent to Bullseye. The problem with all of Genie's adjacency effects is that he's a ranged fighter and he doesn't want to be next to the opponent, and especially Bullseye is a particularly dancey fighter, so a lot of his defense cards will let him move before any of those effects will trigger. Some damage is done through by virtue of it being 4-2, but Bullseye is still able to dance away before the effect damage happens, and now gets to use a Fire Hydrant back on the offense if he chooses, which he will. There we are, it's an attack, and it is I plan to be here into automatons at less, so that is a 7 value attack into a 2. Genie is brought down to half health from 10, but Paul does get to look at Sunzida's hand and discard a card, and is a study the target, and ricochet, and I'm better than you or something, whatever that card called. And so he gets to choose what he feels is the best one. I'm better and I'll prove it, that's the one. Leaving Sunzida on 2 cards, but study the target. Seeing as she's just won the combat, that's another 3 cards, which is dangerous to play at this point, but I think Sunzida just felt like she needed to keep the offense up. And here is a 6 into a 2, leaving Genie on 1 health. So in one turn, Genie was taken from 10 to 1. The Fire Hydrant helped a bit, but I think the sequencing of cards there was really strong from Sunzida. Genie moves away, which Genie probably doesn't have any offensive options in hand, but I think Bullseye is able to just hunt down and deal 1 damage, generally speaking. The no parlor trick turns the 3 into a 2, but that's still enough damage to go through, even without boosting, though I think Sunzida decides to boost anyway. And that is game. So it looks like Genie couldn't quite keep up the pressure to burn Bullseye down, and Bullseye was able to hunt Genie across the map and overwhelm his defenses. So really good game there from both players, really dynamic matchup. I would highly recommend if you want to laugh. It was a lot of fun to watch, and I think for the players to play. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to support the channel, you can consider buying a coffee at the Recursion Cafe. The details are in the description. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.